Hasan debates with Uncle Cenk on trans issues. Just give me this.
Don't pretend that I brought it up. No, you brought it up, and you made it a giant issue, and you're the one hurting the progressive cause and the trans rights cause. We win on every goddamn issue on trans rights. Why are you going and dying on the hill that no one agrees with you on? You're going to ruin trans rights on other issues.
Okay.
We're going to lose because you're being so extreme. And then every ally you have, you're like, nope, I'm going to be more pure than them, so I'm going to burn their bridge down. I don't want any allies. Okay, well then don't have any allies.
Oh my God, I'm going to lose my mind. All right. Cenk Uygur is here, ladies and gentlemen. It's a classic uncle-nephew face-off, as I have talked about already. For those of you who don't know, Cenk wrote a book. This is a in the face. Cenk wrote a book called Justice is Coming, How Progressives Are Going to Take Over the Country.
Yeah.
But let me tell you something that's more important than public polling, however. Because you brought up...
So far, I don't even see where we disagree.
Okay, so you brought up state legislatures, Republicans like passing incredibly, horrifyingly psychotic anti-trans bills.
Yeah.
Okay? And they're passing this. Yet there is no viable single issue voter out there that is like desiring these anti-trans bills. Although, if you ask Americans directly about like, what do you think about a 14-year-old trans girl like participating in a swim meet, they might say 56% might say that's wrong, we shouldn't do that. But the reality is there isn't any real momentum on the ground for anti-trans shit. Okay? Voters do.
Cenk is so unlikable in this. Yeah, one thing that I noticed while meeting with him too, and like I guess the impression that I get right away, is that one of the things that I've always gotten from Cenk is that even if I disagree with him, he comes across quite likable, and I feel like that's fading really quickly, you know?
Do not give a about trans people overall. The overwhelming majority of voters actually have apathy for trans people. They just don't care about it because they think that there's no trans people in their lives whatsoever. Republicans, however, have kept on pushing the anti-trans button over and over again and made it their major talking point.
That's right.
That has yielded horrifyingly bad results for them. And instead of like assassinating Christopher Rufo, for example, who was one of the leading guys here at the Manhattan Institute that was like doing the CRT stuff, doing the anti-trans stuff, instead of going, dude, what the fuck are you doing? You ruined our midterm chances when Biden had a historically bad economy, when a red tsunami was supposed to happen. That was a major failure on their part, one that actually has led to Kevin McCarthy's ouster as the speaker right now, a domino effect of like the Republican Party imploding in and of itself, partially because the only thing that they have been looking for, the only thing that they have, the only tangible policy position is just increasing the dial of transphobia, but there's not enough people on the ground who are demanding it. And those who are demanding it are increasingly more psychopathic, which is pushing away normal Republican voters who are just like, I just want tax cuts, man. Like, I'm racist, sure, but like, the fuck's going on? Like, I don't give a shit about this. Like,
me AF. So far, what he's saying is correct.
Why are you talking about dismembering children's genitals all the time? You sound like a psycho. They're getting outrage fatigue, and it has demonstrably been a failure. And that's part of the reason why you don't see Trump talking too much about wokeness or trans people. He like brings it up every now and then in his commentary, but it is far less than Ron DeSantis, wouldn't you say, who is an objectively less popular candidate.
Yeah. So with the exception of Trump and DeSantis thing, which we can get into, I actually agree with everything you said. So now let me give it to you from my perspective and why I'm concerned about it. So number one, Republicans bring this up because they're...
Why does it seem like there are so few good leftist personalities online? Is it only democracy now that we can all agree on? It is. It really is just campism. It's just the tanky shit, seriously. In terms of online leftism, the well has been poisoned so severely by people who have been convinced that the appropriate leftist foreign policy is just to be in favor of anti-American countries. You know?
Fishing. All their positions are deeply unpopular. So they're fishing for one position that they could finally get some sort of popularity on, right? So they dig all the way down to trans sports at the high school level, and they get over 70% saying, okay, no, meritocracy, we shouldn't do that, right? So if at that point, you and I agree, like, we fight back when they propose a bill, and we do the best we can, and we aggressively make the case that you just made, and then I make all the time on the air, right? And then we're okay with it. And everybody would agree. The country is in favor of trans rights, okay? So, but in the midst of these conversations, one of the things that...
Is this actually the result of Russian-Chinese propaganda? Yes. It sounds conspiratorial, but it's not even like a secret. There are extremely direct lines of money and communication, at the very least from the Kremlin, where there's been a protracted effort to, in the post-Soviet world, project an international narrative of leftism that heavily involves like America always bad, anti-American countries always good. And like it's very easy to trace those lines. China does the same thing to a lesser extent, but like they do it in ways the West doesn't really. Like the West does not have this level of like directed government orchestrated, controlled propaganda dissemination. The propaganda issued from the West tends to be more like capitalist realism stuff. Like you have this overwhelming cultural hegemony that reinforces certain values and norms, but not like literally the State Department at the White House having a giant budget to independently pay a bunch of YouTubers and journalists and whatever to specifically promote certain lines. I think that used to be the case more, certainly less so today. If you go back to the 1950s, we did that quite a lot. Maybe it's just like their turn, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there's like Radio Free Asia in Europe and stuff, but I don't think anything comes close to the level of disinformation the Kremlin propagates with Russia. Like first with Syria and now with Ukraine, being a propagandist for Russia doesn't just mean like touting their narrative. It means lying openly in like mutually exclusive ways, being self-contradictory and just saying whatever. Like there's no it's deliberate incoherence in a way that we've never matched, you know? The closest example from the West that I could think of would be Israel. Israel does a pretty Israel does this too. They don't have to lie quite as hard because again, like it's hard to top Russia when it comes to deliberate like incoherence. But Israel does have like legions of people whose job it is to go under your Twitter posts and call you an anti-Semite for saying that you shouldn't like gun down Palestinian children.
What happens is, okay, on air, I say, okay, you're asking, fine. I think at the high school level, trans girls should be able to participate with biological girls because...
Why do you talk about that at all beyond how...
Because it comes up, because there's a bill.
No,
I'm fighting against the bill.
Okay, but why do you talk about it beyond it being a distraction, perfectly cooked up, because you said you agree with me. Why do you talk about it beyond it being a bill that is laughably unpopular, so unpopular that like...
It's not so unpopular that it didn't pass in all the red states.
Wait, what?
The trans bills that passed, not about bathrooms, but about sports and all that horse crap.
But none of those bills were passed with popular support, Cenk.
I know they're passed by Republican legislators, and the Republican legislators are appeasing their base.
Okay,
and their base is maniacal, and their base wants it.
No, they're not. That you and I are entirely incorrect.
So they go fishing in that area, and in that conversation, I say, hold on, let me finish. Okay. I say, at some point, look, my real opinion is, at the professional level...
It's also worth noting the courts shut down a bunch of these bills. Yes, that is true.
Yes, of course the leagues get to make their own decision. And sometimes, yes, trans women have an advantage, and the league is allowed to say, no, we're not going to allow it, okay? So what happens next? Every single person that I know in mainstream media saw that what they perceive as a progressive community then called me a Nazi. Then they go, okay, progressives are lunatics. I'm writing all of them off, right? Are you kidding me? Because somebody's had like this microscopic difference of opinion with like the most radical end of the progressive base. They're right-wing pivot, Republican, Nazi. Well, okay, you guys sound nuts. Okay, and don't do that.
You think
Just say, hey, I disagree. So
there's not anything like inherently wrong with what's being said here. The problem is that this is the laziest argument you can possibly make. Like, I had a difference of opinion, everyone attacked me, so now I'm going to attack back, is like the easiest imaginable point you can make that you can make from any side of the spectrum, right? I've made it too, don't get me wrong. I think everyone has to some extent. The problem is that on its own, it says very little. Like, I had a difference in opinion and people attacked me over it. And that's why my new bugbear is like these people who attacked me over the difference of, and it's this like infinitely circular thing. It's like an infinite regress. I think that as I've gotten older, as in I've gotten better at the content creation stuff, I try to focus on it a little bit less. Like I try to focus on some groups as like object lessons, you know? Hey, this is bad and don't do that, but let's not fixate on it, right? But Cenk has been like hyper fixating on this.
So what?
Mainstream media literally called you a bestiality-loving horse when you tried to run for office in California. You think they needed you think they needed like 11 trans people with anime avatars on Twitter calling you a Nazi to be like...
To be fair, Vaush, I think sometimes you're a little bit too loose with the terms Nazi and fascist. I disagree. I do. The Nazi thing, I mean, it's like that plus anti-Semitism, right? But like a ton of people are fascists in the broader like political, but like a ton of people are. With TYT, yes. When have I called Cenk a Nazi? Have I called Cenk a Nazi? I don't remember doing that. I mean, I haven't seen anyone call him a Nazi. Just promoting fascist propaganda. I mean, sure.
Like on them on a platter.
That's crazy.
And
they
then
have
there
material
are real
interest.
issues that are much larger that also cost us, and it makes it look like we are extreme when in reality 2/3 of the country's on our side. Take the win. Take the win. So here's another one. And this one, I don't know how you're going to light up on this one.
No, this is
Defund the
important.
police. It's a terrible slogan.
Okay.
A terrible idea.
We're moving away from other talking points. Let's get back.
What slogan? What is he freaking out about right now? What slogan? What is he saying? What is he freaking out about right now? Like, what specific? Defund the police? That's the thing? Okay, defund the police. All right, I missed the specific. Okay.
Let's get back to the one issue that we were talking about. My perspective is that they have every interest to f you every single time, mainstream media does, because of their underlying material interest in defending the corporate oligopoly structure that
Is that horse thing real? The dono in the bottom left.
we have. This is who funds them. This is how people rise into positions of power in the media infrastructure. You've been a part of this already. Personally, you've seen it happen to you at MSNBC. So, like, there is no reason why they're not looking at like magical trans people on Twitter and going, oh, that's it. Here's the reality. They're being crazy again. They're calling Cenk a Nazi.
Yes, they are. And they're looking for any excuse. I agree with that. But then stop giving them excuses, which is the point you started with.
Okay. there's a major disagreement here. We are at odds. And
I think this is pretty dumb. The idea that like so first of all, I am familiar with the stupid shit that Cenk and Anna said recently. So like the idea that they just like did some teeny tiny little shift that everyone's calling them a Nazi over, I know that's bullshit. So I know what's like framing the argument. But additionally, this like, oh, we're giving the right ammunition because everyone was super extra mean to me on this. That can happen, but it needs to be demonstrated on a case-by-case basis. But he's not really like explaining what specifically it is. Also, it's possible to have a good point that's framed in the wrong way. So, for instance, shoplifting is a social harm. It is. If people are shoplifting, it points to social harm. It points to a breakdown of the social contract. It points to poverty. It points to inequality. It points to a lack of cohesion and trust. If a world in which nobody shoplifts is a better world than one in which people do shoplift, all else being equal. However, it is very possible to point out that shoplifting is a social harm in ways that are fascist. Like, let's be real, you know? And we see it all the time. Like, Donald Trump was recently saying, was it Trump or was it DeSantis, was recently saying, like, if you shoplift, you should just be killed. Like, if you attempt to shoplift from a store, they should just execute you in the store. Now, that is an anti-shoplifting take that I can't get behind. Obviously, the way in which you make these points and promote these arguments is really important, you know? Same with, like, drug dealers. I think that most drug dealers are scum, by the way. I don't think drug use or possession should be criminalized, but let's be real, most drug dealers are pieces of shit who profit off of human misery. Let's not, like, pretend that's not a real thing, okay? But then there's the whole we should just execute drug dealers thing. And I don't like that as much. That's not an argument I play with. So it's not enough to just say, well, I have this position or I'm against this position. The extent to which you're against it and the way you promote it is also pivotal. A good example would be Anna Kasparian, who saw in one medical document in California the term birthing persons and decided to just make it her life now. You know, you can think that term is dumb if you want. I don't think it's wrong to think the term is dumb. That's not like morally, just like, it's not like a death knell, right? But if you then decide to turn this into like a gigantic, I used to be with the left until I saw the term birthing persons, and then like, yeah, obviously. Yeah, Demon Mama, for sure. The shoplifting convo is so like, we need to do like a big research stream on this because people so overstate the thing. Like, now that security cameras and phone cameras are more common, we're seeing more like examples of organized retail theft, but the overall numbers on how much is getting shoplifted is not like proportional to the media exposure. And as the media gives more attention to it, it gives an impression of increasing crime. And this is exactly how we get like a fascist propaganda where we have like increasing levels of alarmism where they overstate the degree of social harm and crime and everything. And it's like, well, the only way to get rid of this is with a giant social crackdown and then blah, blah, blah. Like, we've seen this all happen before. That's not to say it's not an issue. It's just like, holy shit, you know, you got to be careful. Big problems. All right.
We're not at odds. You say don't talk about it. I say don't talk about it. We say you say you're against the bill. I say I'm against the bill. You're for trans rights. I'm for trans rights. But my point is
but the difference is the same people that call you transphobic also called me transphobic all the time. The difference is I don't change my perspective at the end of the day, or even offer it any additional light, because who cares? You just do what you think is right and you keep pushing. And I think that it's very...
This is generally a good idea. Can you imagine how ineffective of a politician Bernie Sanders would have been if every time anyone like disagreed with him, he put everything to the side and he was just like, no, I'm going to beef with you now. And like he didn't like keep on message or like stay consistent or whatever, because he was always like turning heel to go argue with other people. That kind of bitter factional infighting keeps the left down. It is true that generally speaking, you want to like keep on trucking ahead.
Very dangerous and very scary when you get moved by your base of support that you have worked tirelessly for 20 years and like building and solidifying, turning on you and saying you're right wing now. I think that
didn't happen though. Like, I agree with you. It's 11 people on Twitter, so our audience is just as gigantic as it's always been. So you can go ahead and cry about it if you're among those 11 people. So I'm not worried about that. Haas, I gave it as a small example, and
is that true? Haven't they lost money and audience share lately? I could be wrong on that.
One of the police is a much larger example.
Okay, we'll get to that in a second.
Progressives are getting pigeonholed by mainstream media and Republicans as radicals, when in reality, we are the overwhelming majority of the country. So we need to focus and get our messaging right.
And that's why, looking at a couple random people and greatly emphasizing the impact that they have, and even attributing like the mainstream media's perspective shift on progressives, when you and I both know that they never gave a shit, and they don't even need like a couple of random trans people to call you a transphobe to like justify their hatred for progressives. Okay,
let's go to a larger
There's no
issue.
reason to talk about that. Now, as far as like there was one other point that I wanted to make, because we were talking about state legislatures. This is really important, please. I think that a broader Republican project, and I think you'll agree with me on this, has been that they want to dismantle the power of the legislative body and then utilize the state legislatures where they know they have control, do the gerrymandering and ridiculous district maps, where they can, even if they don't have popular support, even if they lose the majority of the votes, still maintain a majority in the House and the Senate, right? State House and state Senate.
It's one of the most important things in the country.
Absolutely. And then there's a secondary side to this, though, because there is the judiciary. So they've also they've dismantled the legislative body. They have pushed their power in undemocratic ways through the state legislatures, and then also solidified that power and codified it by court packing, right? So they have this very open project within the Federalist Society, all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States, where they have hyper-reactionary judges that they've placed in positions of power through appointments, right? So
where are we getting with this?
When you do that, there is no need for a democratic process, which is precisely the reason why saying that these Republicans are actually acting out the desires of their psychotic, bloodthirsty base when they're pushing for trans bills that are getting passed in every single state legislature is objectively false. Why is it objectively false? Because one, Republicans have never cared about their base. Let's be...
Hasan is the definition of just saying stuff. No, he's on the money here, I think. Why is Hasan so good at domestic but is so brain dead on foreign policy?
They just use the culture war issues as a way to like draw up support. But in reality, they don't really give a shit about what the base wants. If they did, then they would have never in a million years allowed the Roe v. Wade decision to be overturned, because that was a much better way to just keep dangling in front of the most active base of support they have, white evangelical Protestants, and never actually push to actively dismantle Roe v. Wade and completely criminalize abortion in red states. That's why they have a major f*** up right now, because they're suffering from their own success. So I don't think that pointing to state legislatures and bills that they've passed to say, no, there is actually a decent amount of support for anti-trans legislation from the Republican base of support is correct, especially when all signs point to the opposite. At the national party level, the Republican Party is currently going through a crisis, an identity crisis. They have capitulated to incredibly bloodthirsty, psychotic culture warriors for so long that they end up leading like Ron DeSantis, pushing for objectively unpopular bills, okay, by utilizing the state legislatures, and then suffering the consequences on the perception in the national party.
Yeah.
So Hasan was correct in all of this. Yes, it is true that the Republican strategy for outreach and for like judicial capture has led to them promoting, pushing for, and advertising policies that are actually not popular with the majority of people. The best examples of this being their broader obsession with trans people and Roe v. Wade. Both of which are not doing them any favors when it comes to polling. So, yeah.
Well, look, again, there's a lot I agree with, but let's break it down one by one. So it can be both, Haas. It can be that, yeah, they've done the gerrymandering. Gerrymandering has done most of the work for them, and it made their seats pretty much impenetrable. So if the Republican legislators do something, it doesn't necessarily mean that the voters of that state want it, for sure, right? But it can be that also the vicious end of the Republican base does want it, and the polling indicates that they do want it, right? And so, but the larger point here is,
I don't agree. I don't think there. I don't think there.
Hold on. Let me be clear, because it depends. If you say, do you hate trans people? The answer is no in the polling for American people. They are in favor of trans rights. They are in favor of treating trans people in the same exact way about employment, health care, etc., which is wonderful. And again, 2/3 of the country is progressive.
As opposed to the UK, where Sunak just pushed for trans women not being allowed in with women's sections in hospitals, even though a investigation of like over 100 different NHS wards show there had not been a single complaint against trans women, like, ever in there.
Okay, so when you go to ask them about
it's such an obvious concession that they have no like plan for leading. Like they have no vision for the future of the country. The Tories are aware of the fact that they are like piloting a sinking ship, and they know it's sinking because of them, and they have no vision or direction for how to move forward. So the best they can do is just kind of like continue to poke holes in the ship in the hope that like they can like vaguely amuse their constituency with the illusion of competence or direction or purpose.
Bathrooms, no. When you ask them about the military, no. These people are willing to give their lives for this country, and you don't want them. What kind of a monster are you? So the American people are on our side on all those things. That's why they had to go digging for this stupid high school sports thing, right? And on that, I've seen the polling, and it's over 70% of Americans are on the side of banning them, right? Now, I'm on the other side. I'm with the 30%. I leave the kids alone, right? It doesn't matter if your daughter was going to break a record or whatever. Just calm down. Stop checking the genitals of kids. You're sickos. Leave them alone, right? So, but having said that, what they're trying to do, Hasan, this is the oldest trick in the book, and they did this back in the 1980s, is they dig until they find something unpopular, and they make Democrats or the left wing attack them on it. So, for example, flag burning. So flag burning, everybody knows it's protected by the First Amendment. They know it's protected by the First Amendment, but they want to make it seem like we hate America and we hate the American flag and we all want to burn it. So they contrive this bullshit issue. No one's burning the American flag. It's happened like twice in the last 20 years. And then the Democrats can't help but say, well, it is a First Amendment issue. You can burn the flag. And they go, aha, you unpatriotic assholes, right? So so.
Wait, is he implying that the solution to that would have been for the Democrats to agree and violate the Constitution by banning the flag burning? Is he suggesting the appropriate way to handle that is to concede a First Amendment right and, like, in a bipartisan fashion, attack people for flag burning? That is what he's suggesting? Yeah, the correct solution to stuff like this is to ignore it, and I think the Democrats are more or less doing the best they can. If anything, you can attack Republicans for that kind of hyperfixation. Like, because the thing is, like, if you want to let the opposition get so granular... No, he's saying to ignore it? He is saying to ignore it? Okay, well, if that's the case, then I agree. But he's not ignoring it. He keeps talking about it.
My point is the same point you're making, which is don't fall for that trap. So just say, hey, we disagree on this. Move on.
You're saying,
okay, well, I agree with that. But then why does he keep talking about it?
you're saying don't fall for that trap and don't even defend it, or don't even. I'm saying
defend on the bills, because when there's a bill, you have to defend.
Yeah.
But then point out super aggressively what the Republicans are doing wrong.
Chelsea Manning.
He blames you and Lance for forcing him to talk about it. I didn't make Anna Kasparian randomly decide to start arguing with everyone on Twitter over whether or not the use of the term birthing persons was some kind of critical violation of her sex-based rights as a woman. Like, I didn't do that. That wasn't my fault. Jesus. He thinks you did, though? Well, that sounds like a personal problem to me. I reached out and DM'd her and said, hey, I don't know what you're on about, but if you ever want to talk about it privately, I'm down to. I didn't even respond to her first stupid message. I was responsible.
Question for you. Q for Cenk. Is it possible that trans people are reacting the way we are because we hear people make these talking points, and the next thing we know, people are saying, this is why I had to become a conservative time and time again? And that right-wing slant is true for the likes of Dave Rubin and many others, even including like former TYT people. I think that's where a lot of people are defensive when they hear you talk about this, or when they hear people fall into the trap of like jumping on every single non-issue that ultimately turns into discourse, like bonus holes or whatever like some psychotic weirdo British person came up with at the Daily Mail, right? If you are even pushing that discourse as though this is like real and applied and genuinely a threat to democracy because it's something that everyone is like forcing you at gunpoint to utilize, then all of a sudden you are a culture warrior, whether you admit it or not, because these issues are distractions and they're stupid as and that nobody should even talk about it, let alone amplify it. I'll take it one step further, though. There is one other issue here, and that is the Democratic Party. What do reactionaries do? They have no agenda, right? They have no agenda. They react and they try to claw back civil liberties. That's their goal. And if the Democratic Party is not actually pushing, okay, if the Democratic Party is not actually pushing material realities to...
I think ousting Kevin McCarthy is the closest thing we've seen to like a real agenda from the Dems in a long time. Like they're going with like the Joker candidate here, okay? They're going for like Operation Chaos. And I think that works for their benefit, actually. Playing up how like torn apart the Republicans are is probably in their best interest.
Change in a positive way and giving something to the Republicans to react to, right? To fight against, then all of a sudden that the reactionaries are leading the discourse.
Yeah.
And that is the problem, which is why whenever issues like this come up, because listen, I have a very dynamic stream.
You did reply to her first birthing person tweet, did I? Let me see. I've never heard of any of these terms outside of a few tweets and PowerPoint screenshots where academics grasp desperately for some inoffensive, inclusive medical terms. Okay, sorry. I did respond to the first one, and I had messaged her as well. I didn't attack her over it until later. There we go. This is so nice. Okay, there we go. So I responded first, but I didn't attack her over it later. Yeah, this is the most timid, responsible possible. Yeah. Liar confirmed. Lefty disinfo. True.
People come in here all the time. They say a million different things and they want me to address it or they want me to talk about it. I am very terse.
I think there may be the implication that she's desperately grasping. She is. Yeah, that's true. I'm pro-reality here.
Very strict about, like, whenever someone comes in and they're like, address what Anna said or address what Cenk said. I'm like, no, fuck off. I don't care. Shut the fuck up. We're talking about real issues. Okay? So...
But by the way, that's almost exactly what we said, and everybody called us Nazis. So not everybody, those folks. So look, guys, first of all, let's just be clear on everything, okay? So number one, I fight for trans rights. I have for 21 years when no one else was. So if you don't like it and you don't believe it, that's up to you. You can do whatever the hell you want, okay? So, and I just told you all my positions, which are actually 99% identical to the most extreme trans right activists, right? So we have a microscopic difference. So somebody asked me about it. I say it once, I'm done with it. I'm done with it. And then a giant pylon starts because people want clout. They're like, oh, no, he's not as good as me. He's not as pure as me. He's a right-winger. He's a Nazi. Okay, so I'm like, I ignore it. And then they just...
I've heard this rhetoric like so many times, you know, like so many times. I've heard the same, like, this like understatement of what you did initially and overstatement of the backlash, taking no accountability for anything. The funny thing is that Cenk is like the most argumentative motherfucker on the internet. So if you go to his Twitter account, anytime Anna said one retarded thing, he would be defending her with like 70 supportive retarded things. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I love Cenk for that, for sure. Definitely a ride or die kind of friend. So the idea that like Cenk of all people doesn't like engage with or exacerbate disagreement is really it's stupid. It's out of character for him. Of course he does.
Keep going, and I don't give a shit. They could do whatever they want, but then don't pretend that I brought it up. No, you brought it up, and you made it a giant issue, and you're the one hurting the progressive cause and the trans rights cause. We win on every goddamn issue on trans rights. Why are you going and dying on the hill that no one agrees with you on? You're going to ruin trans rights on other issues.
Okay.
We're going to lose because you're being so extreme.
And this rhetoric, too, like I've heard this so many times, it's so tedious. It's not that it's always wrong. It's possible for this rhetoric to be correct. It's just that everyone says it. Everyone says, if anyone has a more reactionary position than like another left-leaning person, they will say, well, actually, my reactionary position is the pragmatic one. And by being more progressive than me, you're alienating voters. Like, I've heard this. everyone says this. It's like the go-to thing that you say to a person who is more left-leaning, you know?
And then every ally you have, you're like, nope, I'm going to be more pure than them. So I'm going to burn their bridge down. I don't want any allies. Okay, well then don't have any allies.
Okay, if both of our goals are aligned and we are interested in coalition building and actually fighting for justice, okay, there's...
This is the same argument people use against non-binary people? No, yeah, it is. Again, it's made in every instance. It's like a universally applicable argument. If you're a transmed, then you'll say, oh, I think that self-ID and non-binary people actually are like, what we win on every issue. You're the one who's destroying trans rights by doing it. And then if you believe in like self-ID and transmed, but not like neopronouns, we agree on all this, but neopronouns are what's losing people. You're destroying trans rights for everyone. Like, this always happens every time. This has been happening for the entirety of like all progressive advocacy. It's always just the people who are a little bit to your left who are destroying everything. And it's that tendency, that fixation, that actually tends to destroy the movement, you know? This happened after Stonewall too, right? Like, trans people were out there throwing rocks at police or whatever and kicking off the movement. And then like things consolidate and it's all like all the cis gay men are like, well, hold on, we might be able to get rights for ourselves, but we can't be seen with these like crazy transes or whatever. That's crazy. Like they would f it up for gay people, right? This happens like every single time. J.K. Rowling has done this. Like everyone has done this, you know? So it's not impossible for this to be the case. It is possible for the logic being implied, or sorry, being employed by Cenk to be correct, but it's something I'm very suspect of, because overwhelmingly in my experience, the solution to this kind of problem is basically just ignore people to the left of you. Like it's like the kink at Pride thing. Are there people who act inappropriately at Pride events? Yes, there are people who act inappropriately at all public events, but we don't normally turn them into like international Hitler particle discourse, you know? It happens everywhere. So what's the solution, right? Now, I could do what I used to do and be like, I'm going to spend 18 hours arguing the incredibly precise, meticulous, like, here's the exact lines that I draw. And there's no way to draw exact, perfect lines when it comes to something as nebulous and arbitrary as social norms in public. No human can draw perfect lines there. So there's always going to be something granular to argue about, you know? What? Oh, well, can you wear leather in public? Well, yeah, people wear leather jackets. Okay, well, what if it's leather pants? Well, people wear leather pants. Okay, well, what if it's cropped off at like a 5-inch? Oh, blah, blah, blah. Like, you could do this for ages. You could write a book. You could write 50 books. The correct solution is just to say, I think people should behave appropriately. You know, if people get a little saucy, saucy isn't bad. Too saucy is bad. You know, where are the lines? I don't know. I don't care. Let's not worry about it. It's marginal. Tens of thousands of people die every year from lack of proper health care, and I'm going to argue over this. That's my answer, right? Like, did you know that there was a time where a person wore leather, but they wore maybe too little leather, and like maybe it was bad? I don't know. You could go to any beach in America and find somebody who's wearing something that's arguably inappropriate. You know, like some cis woman with huge tits that are flopping out of her tiny bra. Go make Hitler discourse about that. You know, like I'm going to focus on what I think is important here.
Two different things to do here. One is try to engage in purges and try to say this purity spiral is self-defeating, which I agree with you on.
100%.
Or the other thing is to just stay the course and just let people chirp into the void and never give them an ounce of pushback. Because why? Every single if people are looking for class, if
come
people are
on,
looking
get
for,
out of
okay,
here.
no, that's not a get out of here
So
situation.
here, I'll tell you
This
exactly
is very
what
important
happens.
because
No, this is really important because you know why? So Haas, so every time we say any little thing, all the other streamers and stuff, these come in and go, oh, we're better than the Young Turks. We're better than the Young Turks. We agree with you 200%. They're such monsters. And they
for somebody who's been doing this for literally 4 times as long as I have, he is remarkably childish, isn't he? Like, I get embroiled in so much drama, and the way in which he engages with this, like, seriously, come on, proportional to the size of my community and my outreach, I get more drama than TYT does. Yes, it's absolutely true. TYT gets more drama in total, but they're also far larger than I am, which is a mitigating factor. I, proportional to the size of my audience, get far more, but like, he can't write it off, which is a necessary skill if you're going to get embroiled in a lot of drama, because if you don't write it off, you might as well just be a drama YouTuber. You have to, at that, like, past a certain point, you're not even a politics YouTuber. You're like a politics-themed drama YouTuber, where your channel exists primarily to farm content off of a non-stop series of petty personal gripes that you drive up and exacerbate and monetize. And everyone does this to some extent, but like, you gotta have a thicker skin.
clutch their pearls and stuff, and etc. And then we go, okay, guys, but hold on. We said a tiny thing. You guys had this nuclear reaction. Okay, say another tiny thing and defend our position for like 3 minutes on air, right? And then another round of nukes, right? We're better than the Young Turks. We're the most pure. We're the most progressive. Radical, radical, radical. We have to be the most radical. And if you don't believe us, then you're a Nazi. Well, and then I made it an issue. I talked about it for about a total of maybe 3 minutes in all the Young Turks, okay? And then everyone else talked about it for 200 hours.
I know,
and pretended that it was us.
Okay, here's the thing. Here's the thing that there's two different parts here. One, you've immediately ascribed to bad faith arguments to these people. You're like,
yes,
they're cloud
I definitely
operated.
do.
Okay, so one, that might not be the case. There might be genuine disagreements. That's number one. But at which point you think, well, you know better than them, right?
No, they could disagree.
Okay,
I don't give a shit.
Okay,
about
but listen. But like, okay.
But okay,
even
but
if they are bad faith,
I'm going to call them Nazis.
Okay, even if they are bad faith, right?
Destiny's lecturing right now about how progressive victory is just a front for Vaush to steal Destiny's credit for. Speaking of politics-themed drama channels that exist to exacerbate and drive up every personal gripe into a nonstop cycle of monetizable engagement. Whew.
Okay.
even if they're bad faith, then what the are you doing giving them more clout?
I don't.
No,
I don't say anything.
No.
And then they do 200 shows about it.
Doesn't matter.
And then pretend I'm the one saying it.
It doesn't matter.
So hey, can we agree that all the others, like Lance or whatever their names are?
No.
Oh, no. They should all shut the up then, okay? Right? Because that's what you're saying.
Dude.
Why are you making a big issue out of it?
Because
I only said it for 1 minute. They said it for 200 minutes. Why don't they shut the up?
Oh my God, I'm going to lose my mind.
I don't know how it bothers him that much. Like, especially with, like, Lance from the Surfs. Not to say that Lance is, like, a small content creator. He's not. But he's not, like, TYT sized. I mean, basically nobody is. You know? I guess just, like, damn. You know?
I don't even understand what we're disagreeing about. So we agree 99% on the issue, and we agree
I think the major
99% that it's not a major issue.
Because he has higher standards due to a larger audience and he hates the double standard. That's not a double standard. That's reality. Yeah, having a larger audience does mean that there are higher standards to your behavior. Like, yeah, that's not a double standard. That's literally just how, like, the concept of being a public figure works. I mean, if he chafes at that, I don't know what to say. He's an adult. He's been doing this for decades. He runs a whole organization. Like, and Lance is a live streamer who just does own and what did Lance even do or say that was bad? What did Lance say that was bad? I don't even know. 5 months ago, is Cenk really referring to a 5-month-old engagement with Lance? Oh, here we go. Birthing person is an inclusionary term for trans men and non-binary people who give birth. No one is saying women can't be called women, except for right-wingers who do that to trans women. This is a non-issue that's being elevated as a real one. This is objectively correct, inarguable, and completely inoffensive. This is like a flawless... This is a Nat 20 tweet, okay? There's Emma, who's not currently being complained about, but Emma's also great, so... Is that it? Is that really what's being... Okay, whatever. Let's just finish the video. Okay. All right. No, they had a back and forth. There shouldn't have been a back and forth. Cenk should have seen that initial tweet from Lance and gone, "Oh wow, I'm an idiot," and then stopped right there.
And people are making a big deal out of it.
I think the anger that people feel towards that sort of thing inevitably derives from offering any light to that conversation, especially when you understand that it is just like bullshit talking points that have been focus tested and being brought up. The moment that you give it any validity, okay, and now I'm not even talking about like...
Let's talk about a general thing.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm not even talking about like, you know, talking to other leftist people or like defending your positions or whatever. I'm talking about how deeply and undesirably unproductive it is to offer any amount of consideration to literally talking points that are cooked up in a laboratory about 0.1% of the population.
As they do 200 shows back to back.
There are a million streamers.
Are you telling them?
There are a million streamers that have not only said
him?
things about you, but have said things about me as well. There's a difference between you and I, though, because no matter what happens, when people do write those things or people do say those things about me, I've learned the hard way not to give it any credence whatsoever and stay the course. And ultimately, if people have made up their minds that I'm a transphobic person, then that's, yeah, GG's. There's nothing I can do about that. If people think that I'm bad on racial issues or if I'm a misogynistic person, then there's nothing that I can change about their perspective. They are entirely too malleable, which is why I have assumed positions on so many things that the American population considers radical, whether it be foreign policy.
Dude, I feel like we've really built this. I feel like this channel is built on rock. And so much of the rest of the online political space is built on salt and sand. I feel like as time has gone on, I only become more me, but I feel like these insane like just contests to shoot yourself in the foot, you know? Like veering off all the time. It's not even like a channel size thing or whatever. It's just like, Jesus, you know? Like Hasan is out here like declaring that he will be first on the beaches to retake Taiwan for Chinese Taipei for the glorious Chinese Communist Party. You know, the Young Turks has completely lost their mind. Kyle Kalinski's doing good. Love that guy. I don't know. What's like the next? Is it like the Big Pants arc or something? What's next? I feel like in the absence of adults in the room. I'm not the only one, of course. Just like, what the fuck, man? There isn't even like a there isn't even like anything to orbit around. Like there's not like a baseline or like a strong bedrock to build on in terms of consistent outreach. I hope Progressive Victory is able to do that to an extent, though, you know, even for an organization like that, its stability is highly dependent on the stability of its participants. Yeah, I don't know. Also, anything that's like electoralism related is only going to pull in so many online lefties. Yeah, everything has its own issues, Vermin, to be sure. I mean, we certainly do. It's not like I'm great at coalition building. I wish I was better at coalition building. I feel like if I was better at coalition building, like if I had the character, the willingness to socialize or whatever, to do that sort of thing, I feel like I would be ridiculously useful in the broader space, but I'm just not good at it. I just don't like people. The streaming space is full of degenerates and losers and emotionally unstable people. You know, it's a nightmare out there to try to work with people. That's true, Vermin. That's true. Be the change you want to see. Fly to LA and sit in front of TYT until Anna hugs you. Benjamin, you got to reel in that parasocial, friend. Look, yeah, I don't know. Have you tried baking Jenga cake? Yeah.
And what I believe in, or whether it be trans issues, even if it's something that Americans across the board consider to be like unpopular. The reason why I can stay the course in spite of that pushback is because I ignore it, because I know that it is unproductive. That's it.
Yeah.
And the second thing I will say, and this is something that I try to talk to my audience about quite frequently, is that being a progressive is not about having black people or trans people hype you up all
The idea that Hasan ignores this is ridiculous, obviously.
the time. There are going to be plenty of moments where you are going to be at...
Would you say you identify as a social democrat now? No. If anything, I feel like the pathetic state of the online left is a further indictment of social democracy. It feels like there are two paths that people take, and it's either you have the like online leftist take, in which case congratulations, you're now a paid shill of the Kremlin. Thanks, Hasan. Or you have like the, well, I wouldn't call myself a socialist, but I call myself a leftist side of things. And those people are now all liberals who define themselves entirely by criticizing like actual leftist economic and social ideas. So I feel like there's this really pernicious association with liberalism and rationalism, whereas what we all know, of course, in reality is that all liberals are actually social fascists and therefore just the same as Nazis. We need to promote sort of just socialism more actively. Sorry, some of Hasan's audience might be watching. That social fascism thing was a joke. Social fascism is gigacope invented by Stalinists to try to distinguish themselves from the worst versions of, from being worse versions of the social democrats they were opposed to. Okay.
odds with activists. There's going to be plenty of moments where you have disagreements with the marginalized communities that you claim to speak on behalf of, okay? And ultimately, it's not even about a logical conclusion to those problems. It's about being empathetic, right? That's at the heart of the matter.
So let's
being
let's
empathetic.
do a super important distinction, okay? Because and I don't think I made a good enough case for this distinction, and I want to be way clearer. There's a difference between.
Is there any reason for anyone to say they're anything more than left of center? Yes. Liberals will backstab us if given the opportunity. We can work with them to an extent, but we've seen time and time again, like obviously, it's not enough to just be like left of center. You can get work done in that venue, but only so much so. Like this happens over and over and over again. It's very important to promote, like ideologically promote socialist values. It's not sufficient to just wave your hand and go, well, at least we're not Republicans. I mean, it is great that we're not Republicans, but keep in mind that the current environment, the environment in which there's all this economic disaffectation that fascists take advantage of, is an environment created by neoliberalism and neoconservatism, which are basically the same thing. You know, liberalism sets the conditions for this kind of reactionary blowback. Yeah, Neo-Xeno, I know. What does he mean, backstab? It's not like a turn of phrase. Literally, like time and time again, all around the world, there are tons of examples of liberals backstabbing socialists. Sometimes literally, but usually in the sense of like, we will allow for left of center politics as long as it doesn't compromise business interests. And if you go past that point, then you're in trouble. And then there are the tankies, where the anarchists are killed by the Stalinists. Basically, if you're an actual socialist who actually believes in socialism, everyone wants you dead because you're not authoritarian enough to appeal to the right, and you're also not pro-business interest enough to appeal to liberals. You're basically like the biggest target imaginable.
Randos in the world that care about this issue, whether they agree with me or disagree with me, or they heard the wrong thing about me,
By the way,
or they have heard the right thing and they still think this guy's a Republican and I hate him. No problem. Okay. And media figures, streamers, etc. Those guys are largely scorpions. And it's because the incentives and disincentives create scorpions. Because when you attack someone else, you get into the algorithm loop on YouTube, mainly YouTube, but in some other places as well, and you try to get attention.
I'm like the guy from Drive.
They don't even know, I hope they don't know, a lot of them, that they're doing it on purpose. I hope they're not doing it on purpose, but probably some of them are, right? But they think like, no, this is really important. I have to correct the record by attacking the Young Turks. Oh, look at that, my views went up. What a wonderful coincidence. I'm going to do it again and again and again. And this is not just about
rolling into
radical left. Are
VidCon.
you crazy? No way. The right wing started this. Why did Steven Crowder dress up
I've
as
never
me?
seen
Yeah,
that.
I was about to say, listen, but you're
So why did Jimmy Dore attack me like a nut job? Why did Sargon of Akkad go back?
I'm sorry, like a what?
So why did Jimmy Dore attack me like a nut job? Why did Sargon of Akkad go back like 15 years?
Partially
why
because
did Sam Harris? Why did all of them attack us?
Partially because you
YouTube,
respond.
we're the largest.
Partially because you respond. It's called getting farmed. Trust me, I know from personal experience what that's like. For a very long time, I got farmed like a motherfucker. Okay, because just like you, perhaps because I am also as stubborn as you are, I couldn't shut the up anytime there was like any error. Okay, whenever someone said, this is what Hasan believes or whatever I immediately rushed to correct the record, thinking that there was good faith discussion to be had. Now, out of the people that are actually criticizing you, there are people who I do like, who I do appreciate. I'm not going to get into that part of the conversation because I feel like that's going to blow a lid in this. It's going to make you blow a gasket. But the reality is that ultimately, if you want to have a productive, and successful coalition, you just can't stress that shit out. Okay, you can't.
No, I'm good with
even
it.
If
Look,
they say
I'm super clear. You like what we're saying, you come to the Young Turks. If you don't like it and you want super radical weirdos, there's like a million shows for you.
That's what you're doing. Like you're casting everyone else in a bad light. Don't even talk about it.
I think it's really indicative that essentially nothing in this discussion has oriented around the actual disagreement, right? Like barely any time has been spent actually talking about the specific thing that was disagreed on.
Don't even bring it up. That's it.
Okay, so I know I've been punched in the face 200 times, and I'm not allowed to punch back.
Exactly, 100%.
It's just whiny, dude. I don't know. I feel like I figured this out like really early, and I mean, I'm an adult too. He's more of an adult, and I guess he's older. He's more experienced than I am. Just so they're all allowed to attack me, and I can't dedicate my entire programming to lashing out at Twitter comments. Yes, that is how it works. That is true. Yes.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, you get it. That is what I'm saying. That's what being progressive is, okay? If someone on your side is punching you, you ultimately turn around and say, I don't give a it's fine, because the real motherfucker whose face I have to punch is out there that actually holds on to all levers of power. Because while we're arguing about the minutia of your perspective on trans issues, or whenever you choose to engage in like any kind of reactionary framing of an issue, there are actual people out there who are making everyone's lives actively worse. So why the would I ever care about what some dumbass YouTuber has to say when Ben Shapiro is, again, stealing our lunch money and doing whatever the is necessary to keep...
This explains all the Tibet and Taiwan stuff. Do you think Hasan would support Cenk's bid for the presidency if he promised to leave Taiwan to Chinese invasion? Do you think that would be like the wedge issue that he would buy in on?
Propagandizing every awful position that makes people's lives worse. Right. That's why I cover Ben Shapiro every day, by the way, you dumb cocksuckers in here who think like, oh, why does Hasan talk about Ben Shapiro all the time? That's why. Because
Ben Shapiro is actually kind of irrelevant right now. Ben Shapiro leaned into the Ron DeSantis stuff harder than his other Daily Wire contemporaries, and his numbers have gone down quite a bit, haven't they? Mostly because Republican advocacy has taken a much more like fervor-driven fascist tone, and Ben Shapiro's like smarmy know-it-all attitude is not as appealing, you know? Yeah, Matt Walsh is significantly more relevant than Ben Shapiro at the current moment. Also, let's be real here, okay? The Nazism shit has just been getting louder. DeSantis having the Sonnengrad in the campaign promo that got like retweeted from the main account. Multiple Nazi protests promoting Ron DeSantis. Like, the fact that Ben Shapiro is a Jew actually does make him less popular to the right. It does. It like, let's not pretend that isn't a factor.
he's the bad guy. You will never see me agree with Ben Shapiro or Steven Crowder or any of those bullshit charlatans out there, because those are the bad guys. I don't give a if people call me transphobic or racist or whatever. I'm not gonna stray away from my point of view. But more importantly, and I don't think you do either, but there's this one issue that you and I have. There's one disagreement. There's one difference that you and I have. You spend entirely too much time thinking about all the people on your side who hate you, okay? Who say you're bad and wrong, even if it's a misunderstanding. Don't even clear it up. It doesn't matter. People will see where you are genuinely coming from when you keep saying the same shit that you're saying. That you said for 20.
He is right here. He is correct here. This is a good strategy to take. One of the things that I try to do is, if I am engaging in just like infighty shit or whatever, like I'm responding to a video essay that's calling me bad or a Nazi or whatever, I try to be constructive about it. That's usually what I try to focus on. I think, like, is there a way to elevate this beyond just everyone's out for themselves, everyone on the left is bad but me? Is there a way to watch it and try to take something from it and be constructive, you know?
20 years. That's it, okay? A lot of people yelled at me during the Hogwarts drama. There were every trans content creator on Twitter yelled at me, okay, and said, you're a piece of shit, you're transphobic. Oh, what, you can't play one game that's transphobic? It was an idiotic take from the jump. I said it a month in advance that this is entirely too popular of an IP. The best thing to do is not like try to do boycott, is try to boycott this IP that's completely devoid of the transphobic person that is making money off of it, and instead use it to fundraise or push the issue further.
I agree. He was completely correct on that. By the way, very funny that game had no cultural impact whatsoever. Within like a month after its release, I have not heard or seen anyone talk. Like, that game sold so many copies, and I am still seeing constant Elden Ring references everywhere, because even though I think it sold like around the same amount as Elden Ring, like Elden Ring was an actual cultural touchstone, whereas like the Harry Potter game was just like, I don't know, the Avatar movies, where it's big because it's big, it has like the IP association, but nobody actually cares or remembers anything. It's not like great, you know?
Further, everybody yelled at me, said that was incredibly transphobic. What the did I do?
Okay, whatever. We've seen enough of this. It's almost over anyway. All right, nice meme. What did we learn from this? Absolutely nothing. Maybe. I wouldn't even say that. People remember Avatar. I mean, they remember that it exists, I guess.